SITREP World Briefing for August 2, 2026. A homemade explosive device detonated at an Italian restaurant in Moscow on Saturday evening, killing at least 3 people and wounding 21 others. Russian officials said the blast happened at about 8 p.m. local time near the center of the capital, and initial accounts indicated the device exploded as a woman tried to enter the venue. The attack struck a heavily populated part of Russia's largest city, where security incidents carry particular political weight, because Moscow is both the seat of the Kremlin and the country's main transport hub. Security officials said a security guard stopped the woman before the explosion, a detail that pointed investigators toward a deliberate attempt to bring explosives into the restaurant rather than an accidental blast. Authorities did not immediately identify those responsible, and the available reports did not specify a motive. But the bombing is likely to intensify scrutiny of public venue security in Moscow, where attacks in crowded civilian locations have repeatedly prompted broader crackdowns, expanded surveillance, and highly visible law enforcement deployments. Israel carried out overnight airstrikes on residential buildings in the Gaza Strip, killing at least 8 people, according to local authorities cited on Sunday. One strike involved an Israeli military helicopter that hit an apartment, while other attacks struck several residential buildings across the enclave. Residential buildings have become recurring targets and sites of casualty reports because the territory's urban density means military action and civilian life are packed into the same narrow geography. Sunday's fatalities are likely to affect negotiations involving Israel and Palestinian armed groups because each new overnight death toll impacts ceasefire efforts, hostage discussions, and humanitarian access for the enclave's population. Health authorities in Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo, faced a worsening Ebola emergency after the World Health Organization said the current outbreak was the country's worst ever. The Sudan strain has killed 1,587 people so far, and the crisis has been especially alarming because there is still no approved vaccine or treatment for that form of the virus. The contrast with neighboring Uganda sharpened the significance of the outbreak in Congo. Uganda discharged its last Ebola patient from hospital roughly 2 weeks ago, while the virus continued spreading inside Democratic Republic of Congo. For regional health officials, the outbreak has become a cross-border test because movement between eastern Congo and nearby states is frequent, and any uncontrolled transmission raises the risk of new flare-ups elsewhere. The outbreak also carries wider implications for Congo's already fragile public health system. Ebola responses depend on quickly identifying cases, tracing contacts, and safely isolating patients. But those measures become harder when communities are remote, medical infrastructure is weak, and fear of the disease discourages early reporting. With no approved vaccine or treatment available for the Sudan strain, officials are relying heavily on containment and supportive care. Spain has installed a 500-meter floating barrier along the sea border of Ceuta, its North African enclave, after a surge of crossings from neighboring Morocco sent tens of thousands of migrants into the territory earlier this week. The move adds a new physical obstacle in waters off Ceuta, where Spanish authorities have been trying to regain control after one of the most dramatic border breaches seen in recent years at the European Union's external frontier. The crossings have quickly become a major political test for Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's government because Ceuta is both Spanish territory and part of the EU's wider migration boundary with Africa. Ceuta has long occupied an outsized place in European migration politics because, together with Melilla, it is one of 2 Spanish enclaves on the North African coast and one of the few places where the EU has a land border with Africa. That geography makes any sudden influx immediately symbolic as well as operational. Sources and the full written briefing are available at sitrepbrief.com.